I'm Denise Provo. I'm a neighbor and a writer and a bagel guard and a friend of Gloria's and an admirer of the work of Ervena Barva. And I'm also the state rep for this district, and so I bring from the Massachusetts House of Representatives a citation, be it known to all, that we congratulate Ervena Barva on its 12th year, impressive, and thank Gloria and the press for contributions to this community and its literary life. So.
That I love, not just because I feel like I have to because it's the community, but it's great work, and it's an honor for me to publish so many of you. Since April in 2005, I did 21 poetry postcards from writers from all over the country that I knew. And then in 2006, Bill and I did 4 chapbooks, and then 2007, a few more chapbooks. And then from 2008 and on, we've published about 160 titles now.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited. So here they are. Let's start the readings, which is very wonderful. So we're going to start out with Michael T. Steffen.
Wow. Hey. My book, Partner Orchard Daymon, was published in 2014, and if you want to judge this one by the cover, you can, because I've gotten a lot of compliments from the cover. I'm going to read as a poem for the season. It's called Season of Fever. Blame the season, spring, bud in youth's mouth to bloom. Brilliantly against the age-old foot of root, stepped up around the oak, whose trunk has known the hands of children climbing, the dog sniff and its lifted leg, his tie firm at the collar of his pulse of life, and heart the squirrel that thrives in the oak's blood, that lithe, that gray, and that elusive. The gallants are still transparent to the shifty weather of April, sallies of morning sun and sudden glooms of showers. They shade with this inconstancy to which the snoop, Polonius, can only be mock-hearted, with no stomach for the beef they crave. And when it frosts a late spring night in May, not any of us are ignorant or unmoved by the little deaths of blossoms and fruits this year taken for granted.
I'm currently unpublished, so I'm reading off my phone. And what do you do with the leftover pig's blood after you're done bathing in it? I understand you buy in bulk from those less than notable roadside farms to keep the costs down. But you must have a little left over, don't you? Not quite enough to fill a tub. I read somewhere that showers use less water. You might want to look into that. I don't know the nature of bathing in pig's blood, if you have to soak yourself in it, or if a quick rinse would work just as well. But a shower may be more cost-effective, long-term. Your house didn't have a bathtub, but somehow I see it still. Long brown hair, spider webbing as you slip your small body beneath the slithering surface.
Forthcoming, and this is Shades, which is the title poem for the book, which was also poem of the moment at Massachusetts Poetry Festival. It is an ekphrasis that was written for Art of Words down in Plymouth. Visual in verse. Shades. I remember the pillars that marked the shoreline where we once sat, tossed coins into a cold harbor. We waited beneath gray clouds for the ferrymen, watched heavy barges come and go, shivered beneath soft lamplight, knowing the sky was pink with ending. Winter was born. Snow coveted the dying landscape. You were stolen from me, treasure by treasure, and I, bereft and numb, buried silent hands in empty pockets near blue water's icy edge.
Okay, this is Among Us. I think it was published in 2007 and is a collection on angelology. So the different belief systems about angels, pro and con, and belief and non-belief. This is Inquiries for Angels. And it's a quote from Billy Collins. Of all the questions you might want to ask about angels, and that's from Questions About Angels by Billy Collins. So, my high school economics teacher wrote in my yearbook to the student who asked 21 questions per class. Maybe it was to munch down the minutes, to cleverly postpone snap quizzes. More likely it was because I didn't know the answers. If I ever meet an angel, I'm almost sure I will skip the one about dancing on the head of a pin. To me, it doesn't have a point. I might inquire, how were you born? Were you ever an infant, or did you fly forth full grown? Oh, and do you fly around in flocks, or more often solo? Does one of you sit on my shoulder? How much do you weigh? Part-time or full-time duty? If so, do you find it a bit hellish trying to protect me from my own mischief? Can you ever date an angel? I often think so. However, she turns out human after all. If I ever converse with a seraph, will only I be able to see? Will the White Coast think I've lost my sanity? If I do meet an angel, would I know what to say? Maybe something witty like, it's a heavenly day. I've never met an angel, or have I? Thank you, Gloria.
Well, Harris, I was almost caught off guard, and as I was sitting here earlier, I said, hey, maybe she'll ask me to read something. Well, this is my chapbook, The After Images, which I published in 2014. This is titled See Your Hearing. Listener, burnish the sense where it is felt, each jewel sound being. Air's voices shift as skull pivots, left side and right, 6 directions set in unwavering mind. My scatterheads listening, checklists, church chimes, humid auroras, mosaic clatter of startled bird babies, flat thump of cardboard on plastic. Heard that, heard this, the roster ticked. Packed earbuds guard concentration's thin gate. Play it again, repeat, fade, decay. Repetition manufactures foreplay for the ears, but with bare attention, stillness pulse shines. Now you see your hearing. Introspect sound in your skull's heaven. Lustrous percepts. Each beat, rasp, slide, click, sigh, manifest like honey, like water, like night. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria, for asking me to read. And in 2008, Gloria brought out my chapbook, Tara, and later on it became a full-length book called Had Slaves, which was unfortunate for the chapbook, because of course once the full-length book came out, that sort of swallowed up the purchases, but thank you so much. I'm going to read a poem called Steel, and just to say very quickly,
the book came out of, and the chapbook came out of doing research on a great-great-great-grandfather who lived in the Missouri Ozarks, who I discovered owned slaves. I grew up in northern Illinois, had no idea about this sort of background. And when the 9 people that he held in bondage made it into freedom, they took his surname. And this poem is for Eliza and Easter Steele. Township 28 North, Range 22 West, Section 29. Consider the whole square mile as cemetery, the rough border of 2 graves. Somewhere on 90 acres of it, ex-slaves, 2 sisters on their backs, straddled by a subdivision. I just want to pull down their skirts. The dead man's surname hounding them. It's no cadaver dog, no hellhound bloodhound on their scent, no lapdog pull toy on a string. Just a purebred mongrel with all its shots, gnawing at the bones of their given names.
Thank you, Gloria. Here is my book. It's published by Barva Press last September, and with I share with Gloria and Tim the same publisher, so it was a really happy time for all of us when our book came out. Here's a poem called Number for a Friend. We write like we cook, a pinch of salt here, a drizzle of fat there. Fire up the stove, contemplate the color. Some demand strict rules, others relish anarchy. In the poetry book I'm reading, there is suffering, there is love, and you. Poems shaped like a pyramid, a headstone, a line of rain, stormy fields where blackbirds perch. For me, your poem, the onion you lay line by line, a hybrid thing, both Occidental and Oriental, is a struggle against the void. Hybrid like love cold, like love hot, like love open-ended. What is poetry? Just words out of thin air, squall to calm, calm to squall. We ride through byways and number like a chef in a burning kitchen.
Yana, Kylie?
This is not my poetry, okay? This is a translation of a Czech poet named Jaromír Hořec. Jaromír Hořec wrote this while in prison for labor during the communist time, before the Velvet Revolution, at the time when they couldn't even have, he knew Havel also, Václav Havel, at that time. They couldn't even have anything to write with, so the way they wrote poetry is that they knew all their friends around, and they would come down, they would come and say, I just thought of this poem, now you remember this, you remember that, and so on. And that's how this book was put together. And it's a book about, we've had angels before, this is a book about a saint that actually was a Czech princess in the 13th century, in the time of St. Francis and Clare, who had a long correspondence with Clare, and eventually essentially realized that what was happening, a little bit what's happening now, the rich were becoming richer and the poor were becoming poorer, and she decided to do something about it. and she refused to marry the emperor, and actually started with a group of friends, a Franciscan group that took care of the homeless. And her place, her brother being the king, then he built a hospital for the poor that actually was opened in Prague until 1945. The buildings are still there. They have become, they are right there. If you go to the Charles Bridge, I'm sure some of you have been to Prague. It's on the left side of the Charles Bridge, right by the river, and it's now the Museum of Czech art, medieval art. And it's worth, no tourist is ever taken there, but if you go to Prague, that's where you have to go. Anyway, she had just as Jaromír Hořec, the poet, had trouble putting this together in the prison. He was writing about her because it was hard for her to do what she wanted to do. And it took really great courage, especially when the emperor asked her to marry him. And her father was absolutely furious, she wouldn't do it. And so, anyway, it was very similar to kind of being against a power that was a power that you couldn't resist because they were the power, like being in the prison. And so this is a poem about the moment where she decides that that's it. She's not going to, she's been sort of married off 3 times actually, and then the emperor asks her, this is all not for her, but for alliances, political alliances. She's being used for political alliances. And this is the moment where she decides not to, to follow Francis and Claire, but in Prague. She finds God. She finds God wherever she walks, friend of kings as well as of the poor, forgiving humankind, for even ugliness and evil come out of the will of God. She lays a balm on wounds which cannot close over. To accusing mouth she offers water, whose spring she calls forth from under the stones. Hungry herself, she bars the way to hunger. Anguished, she consoles the miserable, whose hearts stumble in the dark. She serves the light that visits her in hours of need, lifting up the lost, taking away suffering. She despises the mantle of worldly glory, confesses purity, subject to nothing, except the truth of the word that guides her, unthreatened, over impassable roads, mud and rocks, into the freedom of scriptures.
Andre Gritzman is next, and I'm glad he's here from New York.
Really appreciate it. A few days ago there was a special day. It was a Holocaust Memorial Day, and this poem was about that. As a matter of fact, that's a real story, and it happened nearby in that area in Massachusetts. The last 3 lines are from Polish national anthem in Polish, which is the Poland is still alive, while we are alive. Holocaust. The Holocaust never occurred. It's a matter of perception and logical reasoning, said a young, tall guy, PhD from MIT in artificial intelligence, sitting on the floor with Merlot at a literary party in Cambridge, Massachusetts. A condescending hint was flickering in his brown eyes of the half-blood. And if it did, said, softening the point, his girlfriend, and knock out Harvard Law in tight Donna Karan corduroys. It's not virtually relevant anymore. The train is gone, so to speak. I got up and left the building so not to smash his precious head with a Walmart folding chair. That night I woke up in my childhood Moscow, January frozen precipice, through frosted window with a huge poster, "People and Party are united," held still by a projector, my grandma behind the wall, tossing and turning in her bed, sobbing, the usual, remembering her mother and three sisters, their fading smiles on the old photo from a letter, in her nightmare, their last supper of bread and carrot tea night before their disappearance into historical irrelevance. Lodz, 1943, melting grey snow, charred carcasses, monstrous panzer roaring pointlessly at one spot. Polish policemen warming up in the yard, passing vodka around, cold lard and cigarette stubs. Jeszcze Polska nie zginęła, póki my żyjemy.
My first chapbook is forthcoming in June, I hope, from Cervena Barva. I'm so excited and grateful. And this poem, just to show you how tiny the poetry world is, comes from a prompt that happened in my very first writing conference I took. Tim was there, and we were at Colgate with Kelly Cherry, and she was having us work in form. So enough nerding out. This is a sestina for Janis Joplin. What would we be if we could not sing? Baby, my life is hard as a rock. Didn't I make you feel like you were the only man? Baby, I tried. I could not make it work. You try growing up ugly in Texas. You try growing up so alone. I wasn't pretty, so they left me alone. I wasn't pretty, but I could sing. Back home in Port Arthur, Texas, they fed us gospel for breakfast. No rock and roll hippie shit, just church and hard work. Each woman, God's servant, each man. I didn't dig it so much, man. So I ran to where the music was far out, but I was still alone. They asked me if I was afraid to work, but I was more afraid to sing. Odetta sings folk songs like Chain Gang, breaking rocks, and I couldn't wait to get out of Texas. San Francisco was nothing like Texas. Lost a piece of my heart to more than one man each night. I was rocked by a different daddy. But in the end, they left me alone. All I could hold on to was singing. And don't let anyone tell you that isn't work. On stage, I always had to work. My courage up the bay was in Texas. Nobody wanted to hear me sing gospel anymore. They wanted ball and chain. Man, they wanted heartbreak. I make love to 25,000 people a night and go home alone. My shoes are broken. I want to crawl under a rock, but damn, can I rock the house. I know how to work the crowd. Southern comfort, chase the blues, chase the lonely. Heroin and song kept me the hell out of Texas. It was better than it'd been with any man. I was beautiful when I could sing. It takes work to hold on when you know you're alone. My high school reunion, man, faces like rocks. Nobody in Texas asked me to sing.
Can you guys hear me from here?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Don't have to worry about it. Yeah, great.
Oh, sure.
It's good to know that, that no matter what happens in the world, still have people like Gloria who are putting out books. Yeah, now, that's courage. That's great. It's good to be here with everybody. I see so many local friends, and of course, good to see friends who live a little further. I don't see them as often. Hope and Andre, and good to see them now and then. So terrific. This is great. The poet James Tate, he said that the best way to navigate the world is to keep walking. And while I concur with that, I've always felt like Bill and Gloria, what they're doing it so well, they're sort of skating. I kind of like that, and I incorporated that into this particular poem. It's called Perfection for the Moment. A man has a simple hamburger for lunch. 1 tomato, no cheese, nothing deluxe. At his first bite, he feels the serenity come over him. A serenity he's almost forgotten. Peace, compassion, understanding, love, all the abstractions people laugh at now, sidle up to him to ask his forgiveness for having waited so long. The man knows this won't last, which is why he eats slowly, listening for some faint strains of the grand aria performing deep inside him. When he finishes, he steps onto the street, stares immediately at the bluest sky, and salutes the world. A young couple says, a young couple says, the poor soul, but he pays them no heed, pays no one any heed. The man has already started skating down the avenue, without blades or a board, negotiating the sultry July crowds perfectly. Thank you.